Somewhere this weekend, someone is going to wake up in a room where nothing is familiar except the bad decisions. The ceiling is different. The phone charger is not theirs. One shoe has mysteriously migrated under a chair. And there is a quiet moment where their brain has to reload the last 12 hours, like an old computer trying to open a file it definitely should not have downloaded. Nobody says anything profound in this moment. There is no dramatic music. There is just a person staring at the ceiling, trying to figure out how to leave respectfully, find their keys, and avoid making eye contact with a half-empty glass of water that somehow feels judgmental. The strange part is that this happens everywhere. Different cities, different bars, different dating apps, different excuses, same human pattern. People meet, flirt, decide the night should continue, and sometimes spend the night with someone they may never see again. At first glance, that does not make much sense. Human beings spend most of their lives looking for safety, trust, connection, familiarity, and stability. People want to be understood. They want to be chosen. They want someone who remembers how they take their coffee and knows which side of the bed they pretend not to care about. So why would the brain sometimes want the exact opposite? Why would something temporary, uncertain, and emotionally risky feel exciting? Why do one-night stands exist at all? The easy answer is sex. That is the answer most people reach for, because it is obvious, simple, and requires almost no thinking. People are attracted to each other, bodies do body things, and somewhere in the distance, common sense quietly packs a suitcase and leaves. That explanation is partly true, but it is also incomplete. If one-night stands were only about physical desire, they would be much easier to understand. But anyone who has watched human beings behave after midnight knows the story is rarely that clean, because one-night stands are not only about attraction. Sometimes they are about novelty. Sometimes they are about loneliness. Sometimes they are about confidence. Sometimes they are about escape. Sometimes they are about proving something to yourself that you would never admit out loud. And that is where the question gets more interesting. Why does the temporary sometimes feel more powerful than the familiar? The first layer is novelty. Your brain loves newness because new things get attention. A new person is unpredictable. Their laugh is new, their smell is new, their body language is new, their reactions are new. Even the small details feel charged because your brain has not learned them yet. That uncertainty creates a strange kind of electricity. In a long relationship, the brain often knows what is coming. It knows the jokes, the routines, the arguments, the patterns, and the exact tone someone uses when they say "I'm fine," while absolutely not being fine. Familiarity can be comforting, but it can also become predictable. A stranger has no script yet. That is part of the appeal. For a few hours, nobody knows your history. Nobody knows your usual role. Nobody knows how you acted in your last relationship, what you failed at, who hurt you, or what you are secretly tired of being. That is not a small thing. Sometimes the most seductive part of a new person is not their body. It is the fact that they don't know enough about you to be disappointed yet. This is where one-night stands become more human and less simple. A temporary connection can feel freeing because it allows people to become a slightly different version of themselves. More confident, more reckless, more desirable, less burdened by the story everyone else already knows. For one night, someone can feel interesting again, wanted again, uncomplicated again. They don't have to explain their childhood, their attachment style, their 5-year plan, or why they still have a box of random cables they swear will be useful someday. They just get to exist in the moment. And for people who spend most of life managing expectations, that can feel dangerously good. But that creates another question. If people want connection, why choose something that might disappear by morning? Because real connection is expensive. Not financially, although dating apps have somehow made even emotional confusion require a subscription. Real connection costs vulnerability. It requires being known. And being known is riskier than being desired. Desire can happen quickly. Being known takes time. Desire can be based on a look, a conversation, a mood, or two people standing too close in a place with terrible lighting. Being known requires someone seeing the parts of you that are not charming at midnight. And that is the uncomfortable middle of this whole thing. Sometimes a one-night stand is not about avoiding connection because someone does not want it. Sometimes it happens because real connection feels too dangerous, too slow, or too likely to expose something they are trying to keep hidden. Being wanted without being known is a very specific kind of comfort. It is shallow, but it is clean. Nobody has to see the full picture. Nobody has to ask the harder questions. Nobody has to stay long enough for the mystery to become maintenance. That does not make it meaningless. It just means the meaning is not always where people think it is. Then there is validation, which is the part nobody wants to say too loudly. Human beings like feeling chosen. They like evidence that they are attractive, interesting, desirable, or still capable of creating chaos in someone else's decision-making system. A one-night stand can feel like proof. Proof that someone wanted you. Proof that you still have it. Proof that your last rejection did not permanently remove you from the market, like an expired coupon. That kind of proof can be powerful, especially when someone feels invisible. Maybe they just got out of a relationship. Maybe they feel older than they used to. Maybe they have been scrolling through other people's lives and quietly wondering if they are falling behind. Then someone looks at them like they matter, and suddenly the brain starts making emotional decisions with the seriousness of a person holding a credit card at 2 a.m. Of course, alcohol often gets involved, because apparently humans saw complicated social behavior and decided it needed fewer breaks. Alcohol does not create every one-night stand, but it can lower the part of the brain that usually asks annoying but useful questions, like, is this a good idea? And will tomorrow morning be weird? It narrows the world. The future gets blurry. Consequences move farther away. The present gets louder. The person in front of you becomes more interesting. The plan becomes less questionable. And by the time your responsible self returns, it is usually holding a phone the next morning and whispering, "What did we do?" But blaming alcohol alone is too easy. People have been making impulsive romantic decisions long before cocktails had names that sounded like minor crimes. The deeper issue is that humans are not perfectly rational creatures, calmly selecting partners from a spreadsheet. Attraction is older than logic, and sometimes it moves faster than explanation. Your brain is carrying ancient systems into a modern dating world. For most of human history, attraction, status, novelty, bonding, risk, and reproduction were tied together in messy ways. Today, those same instincts are happening inside bars, phones, apartments, ride shares, and group chats, where three friends are typing, "Do not go over there," while knowing exactly what is about to happen. Modern life made meeting easier, but it did not make humans simpler. Dating apps put endless possibility inside a rectangle. Nightlife puts strangers in rooms with music, lighting, alcohol, and just enough plausible deniability for everyone to pretend they are making normal decisions. And sometimes the appeal is not even the other person. It is the story. The feeling that something unexpected happened. The feeling that the night escaped the ordinary. The feeling that, for a few hours, life was not just work, bills, routines, laundry, and pretending to understand health insurance. That is why one-night stands can feel exciting and empty at the same time. They can offer intensity without depth, closeness without history, and intimacy without responsibility. For some people, that feels freeing. For others, it feels lonely 5 minutes after it ends. And that contradiction is the real story. One-night stands exist because humans are pulled by competing needs. We want connection, but we fear exposure. We want stability, but we crave novelty. We want to be known, but sometimes we want to be desired by someone who does not know enough to hurt us. That is why the next morning can feel so strange. It is not just awkward logistics. It is the collision between the version of you that wanted the moment and the version of you that has to interpret it afterward. Sometimes it feels fun. Sometimes it feels confusing. Sometimes it feels like nothing. Sometimes it feels like you borrowed closeness from the future and woke up with interest. So why do one-night stands exist? Not just because people want sex. That answer is too small for something this human. They exist because temporary desire can offer a shortcut to feelings people spend years chasing. Confidence, novelty, escape, validation, and the fantasy of being wanted without the danger of being fully known. A one-night stand is not always the opposite of connection. Sometimes it is what people reach for when real connection feels too risky. And maybe that is why the whole thing is so hard to judge from the outside. From a distance, it looks simple. 2 people, 1 night, bad decisions, maybe a missing sock. But underneath, it is often a much older human question wearing modern clothes. Do you want to be wanted for a night or known for real? And what happens when for a few hours, being wanted feels easier,